Hey, Rockheads, this is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
Here to tell you that the folks who make the amazing NDC conference in Oslo, London, and Sydney are coming to America.
That's right. The first annual NDC Minnesota is May 7th to 10th at the St. Paul River Center in Minnesota.
What does the N stand for now? Not in Europe. That's right. Or anywhere, not anywhere else but America. Right now, you can get super early bird pricing, only $600 for the conference itself.
But the super early bird ends on December 17th. So go to ndcminnesota.com today and register.
And tell them Carl and Richard sent you. Hey, Carl here to say that Music to Code By is now an app called Music to Flow By. Now you can listen to the tracks on your phone with offline capability. The first 3 tracks are free, and the entire catalog is available by subscription with a new track arriving every month. Just go to musictoflowby.com for all the links. Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
Still at Connect in New York City, and Lori Lamkin is here. We're going to be talking some DevOps, and it's going to be a good show. I can feel it.
I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah, but before we talk to Lori, we have this little matter of better know a framework.
Okay.
Roll the crazy music.
All right, dude, what do you got?
Brian McKay, one of my AppVNext guys, found this and said, hey, have you seen this? And this is how I find a lot of my things. I just go into the Slack board every once in a while and see what these guys are juicing on. This is Scrutor.
Scrutor.
Scrutor. And it's assembly scanning and decoration extensions from Microsoft.extensions.dependency injection.
Interesting.
Yeah, so basically, instead of manually adding all your dependencies, which is kind of a loser thing to do, just saying, this will go out and scan for them and put them in. So it adds 2 extension methods to iService collection: scan, the entry point to set up your assembly scanning, and then decorate, which is used to decorate already registered services.
Nice.
It's just a little, hey, I'm here thing, and then you do it automatically rather than having to
type them out,
type them all out, put it all in. Yep, and it's out there. It's on GitHub. Know it, learn it, love it.
Yeah, good find, actually.
Yeah, thanks,
it's
Brian.
not really framework, but
part of our framework.
Yeah, part of our way of building software.
Part of our way of building software, and it just makes things easier.
Awesome.
Thanks, Brian. Richard, who's talking to us?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1490, the show we did with Kevin and Eric at Orlando at the Ignite conference, talking about SQL Server DevOps, a very challenging subject all by itself. Got a few comments on the show. One of them's from Simon Foster, who says, I'm a web developer in a data team, and this is just the kind of show my team needs to hear. Yeah. Play it for them all, my friend. Play it for them all. Since I started my role, I've been banging on about the advantages of getting databases under more source control.
Yeah.
Schema under source control is the way to go.
Right.
For the most part, we've achieved this. However, our biggest challenge is one of education. For web developers like me, source control is an essential tool, but for SQL developers, it is a totally new experience, and it'll take some time before it is a reflex.
Interesting.
I completely agree. And it's actually permeating IT as a whole. I'm starting to see PowerShell scripts checked into source control as well.
Yeah.
So that they're manageable, maintainable. The big question always is, if somebody else has to use this, will they be able to? If they need to make a change to it, will you know?
What do DBAs do now to control versions of databases? I mean, you're in that world.
Absolutely. Well, you have a cross and a white robe, and you do a lot of prayer. No, it's really...
There's no tools to help with that?
Literally been armed defense. Well, the Red Gate folks, lots of people make some tools, but the discipline around maintaining schema is, it's pretty erratic. It's very challenging. You maintain backups of older databases for that reason.
Right, yeah.
So you can extract schema from it, but a backup's massive.
Right.
So the idea that schema is source code, I think that's a struggle for some DBAs.
But once they get used to how awesome it is to
and how much better your life is.
Yeah.
Well, and also it's a very DevOps concept of one source of the truth. That version 4 of this product represents these chunks of code, these assemblies, right? This deployment strategy, this pipeline, and this set of schema. Around the data. It's all part of the equation. So Simon, thank you so much for your comment. A .NET Rocks mug is on its way to you. And if you'd like a .NET Rocks mug, write a comment on the website at .NETRocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a mug.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. He's at Rich Campbell. I'm at Carl Franklin. Send us a tweet. We schematize them.
We scrutinize them. And then we give some dependency attention.
All right, let's introduce our esteemed guest today, Lori Lamkin. She's Director and PM of Visual Studio Team Services. Wow.
No kidding.
That's quite a title.
Hi, thank you for having me here
Welcome,
today.
Lori.
Glad to have you on board.
Very glad to have you here.
I've lost my voice at Connect, so.
That's to be given. I mean, you're literally just going conversation to conversation
That's right.
conversation for 2 days now.
Yes, that's right.
You're almost done.
Yeah, it's super fun, really energizing, but the strain is showing on my voice today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, I mean, you're out of Redmond, so it must be good you're meeting customers, like you're talking to folks that are using your product.
That's right. We get lots of people coming into Redmond as well, and we like to get out at all these events and user groups and on the meetups and all kinds of things to hear what people have to say, what they're struggling with, and how we can help.
Some of the conversations we've had this week have really been about how Microsoft eats their own dog food.
Yeah.
Like your conversation we had with Brian Harry, we were just talking about moving all products, even Windows and Office, are living in team services now.
That's right.
And using Git as their source repository,
That's
which I find extraordinary. I mean, there's an argument that Windows is now the largest source repository in the world, something like 300 gigabytes.
It is. It is the largest in the world. And that didn't happen overnight for us to do that. I mean, and I think when Microsoft decided that standardizing on a single DevOps tool chain is in the best interests of moving faster as a company and also just making sure that we kind of have a handle on all the chaos. We're trying to ship all the time now.
Well, you guys have hundreds of products. So really one chain?
That's right. Well, there's lots of flexibility within the way. Like as VSTS, you can create your own processes, whether you're using that process templates for planning or anything like that, build templates. All these things are things you can either standardize as an organization or as a team or even as a small feature team.
Sure.
Yeah. In fact, in VSTS, we have a set of reports that we run, but really I've got teams that use Scrum and teams that use Kanban. And I feel like, and some teams that don't do anything and I'm no worse for the wear of not knowing about it. But, they have that freedom as long as they can kind of roll up, do the deployments as part of VSTS, do the planning activities as part of what we do and communicate and be transparent. There is an ability to be flexible.
Yeah. So there is some choices there. I saw Donovan Brown on stage at the keynote and he actually talked about the VSTS team using VSTS to ship VSTS.
That's right.
Very recursive.
When did that start happening, by the way?
Well, we've always used TFS, as part of what we do. And then we started creating the service and it was in preview for some time. And we wanted to be the first customers of that. And I feel like that had to have been in somewhere around 2010 that we moved ourselves over to our cloud service and started using it ourselves.
You've been involved with this product since its inception.
Yes, I have. That's
right. What was the code name? Whitehorse?
No, it was called Burton. Was the name of the code name?
That's Burton.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember that the other day.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day, and I think I said Whitehorse. And you're like, that's not right.
Yeah. Those were some architectural tools that were part of it. But
2005, 2006.
Well, I remember this because I have twin boys.
Okay.
And I was on maternity leave, and when I came back in early 2003, I started working on the project.
Umbrella.
So so we released in 2005, but it was just getting started.
It's just a couple of years ago into that. And I think we were talking about this before we even started recording. It's like the transformation of that product, which was very much an in the office, everybody's in the same room kind of. You check out a file, that file's checked out.
Yes.
Your sort of classical source control to today, where the back end is Git, and you're really distributed, and even the VSTS team itself is split between North Carolina and Redmond.
And IDC in India. We have a team in India. I'd say it's about a third.
Wow.
And then we allow people to work from whatever location. I have a person on my team in the Netherlands who just,
It's stunning to me to think about the transformation that the product had to undergo. And this is sort of the modern way that people work now.
That's right. A lot of people are starting to embrace DevOps because they know customers expect more and they expect it more frequently and they can't keep up with their competitors or the business needs more. And so DevOps is the promise here. And so we better jump in.
Are we getting past of competitive advantage into just requirement for business?
I think it's a requirement for business.
That's really interesting.
It's just process and automation, really. I mean, it's what it...
Yeah. When are we going to call DevOps software development.
Yeah.
Oh, it totally is.
And you know, the same kind of approach to automation and just management and that kind of stuff is taking hold in things other than software. So in that whole idea of automation and process and tools and people culture is sort of not just in the software business, but it's everywhere now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kanban was invented in Japan, for the car.
And that was an American named Deming, who was shipped over there by Douglas MacArthur, having implemented it for America in World War II. That's why he made so many bombers and things. But then they exported the whole thing to Japan because MacArthur was going to rebuild Japan with it. And now you're re-importing it back from Japan.
Welcome to Drunk History with Richard Campbell. No, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Nope. We're just drinking water
It's
today.
caffeinated history.
It's caffeinated history. I find that stuff fascinating.
It is cool.
That we've kind of gone around this full circle. And you're right. It did come from the factory sign.
Yeah.
And there's an aspect of it. And it's interesting to think about how this gets implemented. One of the aspects in the Toyota method is this thing called the ANAN cord, or they basically stop everything cord.
Right.
That every employee has the right to pull when they see something damaging to business value.
Right. And they also have an incentive to not cry wolf.
Right.
Which is awesome.
We are stopping the line.
Right.
So,
it better be worth it.
Well, there's a parallel there when I think about DevOps and I say people ask me kind of what are the keys to DevOps? What are the two things or one thing I need to do? And I say there's two. One is to change the schedule, because if you want to ship less than 2 years, you need to change the schedule, and that's kind of the heartbeat of how your team works and operates. And when you change that rhythm, then people have to change. It inspires change in other ways
Makes them think
well.
forces them to think differently.
That's right. And the other one is end-to-end accountability on the engineer.
Interesting.
So to your point of being able to pull the cord, it's a little different in terms of in DevOps, there's not like a production line necessarily to pull the cord. But if I put code in production and it's not of quality and it's not meeting customer needs, I get to hear about it, not some other ops team.
Nobody's going to find it for you.
That's right.
You're the one that's going to land.
I'm the one who has to wake up at 2 a.m.
Sure.
And so
That's an old Adrian Cockcroft line. When we started waking up the devs at 3 a.m., we had a lot fewer bugs at 3 a.m.
All of a sudden. That's right. And if they're not accountable for code in production, they're not incented.
Sure.
And a lot of things start changing when they are accountable. Because if I'm accountable for testing, I'm not waiting on another team. Why aren't they doing their tests? What's wrong with those people?
Right.
Why are they going so slow?
Yeah.
It's like, it's me. Oh, I better get it done.
I think it was Brian Harry earlier that mentioned this idea of you write code differently when you're responsible for the testing of that.
Yeah.
code
That's
as well.
right.
Yeah.
That you start considering writing a feature that's more testable and maybe spending and sort of balance between the time you put into the production code and the time you put into the testing of that production.
Yeah, especially if you've experienced it coming back to bite you and then having to do more work.
That's right. And also our devs and our testers weren't even able to share tests between them. Like they had to use different tools and all of that. Just a bunch of waste in the whole system went away when all of a sudden one person's accountable for all of it.
Yeah. So you own a feature from top to bottom. You work on the requirements with the overall strategy, define it out, you build it, you test it, you deploy it, you fix all the bugs that it's related to.
That's right. I mean, I think the program management team essentially is the team that I run, and that discipline is responsible for the strategy, the backlog, and the design. So product owners, but also the technical design of the product. And the devs, they are or engineers, we call them, we slip back into calling them devs a lot. Those are responsible for the quality, how it's built, like making sure it's good architecture, it's secure, and it runs performant and all of that.
What happens to your QA people?
Well, that was a really hard transition. A lot of people ask me about that.
Sure.
What we did is we eliminated the QA discipline from our teams. And so we merged dev and QA at the time.
Right.
And that was a tough transition because we had devs who really didn't want to make that transition. I really don't want to write tests.
It's really because the developers would just chuck it over the wall without testing anything. And there's a lot of back and forth and wasted time with testers getting mad at them. And
that's right. And that's why that inspired the change. And also testers were testing things I wrote months ago.
Right.
I can't even remember it. I mean, think about that.
Yeah,
if you're testing it the same day, I just introduced that bug. I'm familiar with the code.
Yeah.
I remember being on a team like that. And you're right. I mean, especially if it was low priority. If it was low priority, you might have written it 2 months ago by the time you get around to it. It just keeps getting later and later and later.
Right. And then you have the context switch to reorient yourself, and it just takes forever.
Well, it's sort of an argument that it doesn't matter who you give it back to at this point. If it's 2 months later, you don't remember. It's not in your head.
Does.
Yeah, that's right. That's
gone.
right. So merging the disciplines helped so that the single person could make sure that there were tests that were being done. And it was really hard at first.
Does that mean fewer QA people? Or did they become developers? Where did they go?
They became developers. Some people left the company, some by their own choosing, some not, because there was a skill that was needed. And like I said, both dev and test had to make changes and say, devs had to say, I need to work differently. Do I want to work differently? Is this what I want to do?
Yeah.
Testers had to say, all right, I'm writing production code now. I need to make sure I have those skills as well.
So less functional tests and more unit tests. But the functional tests, I love the idea of rings that you guys have. Starts with the team and then it grows out and out and out until you finally get to the customer.
That's right. I think what we learned as part of our transformation ourselves was that you can be accountable, you can have this short schedule and all that, but no feature fits in a given sprint. And so we need a way to control exposure so that developers continue to commit code into master, don't hide it off in their own thing and then continue to deploy.
But running with feature flags off?
Yes, that's right. So feature flags is one way, and the rings, like you were saying, that's the other key way.
Right. So you limit the deployment itself.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, all software is tested on customers eventually. The question is how much you're going to surprise the customer along the way. Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's certain classes of tests that still take a sort of testing person. Somebody who actually walks the UI or, builds that kind of test.
Yeah. So when we started this journey, we had a lot of those sort of tests.
Right.
That was actually the bulk of our test portfolio was that. And, first we got through all this schedule and automation and accountability changes, and it became very clear that these tests were long running.
Yep.
And they were failing a lot because they covered such a large surface area.
Right.
So the chances of it failing are much higher. And so we decided to change our test portfolio to be like, we need a gazillion unit tests that can run super fast on every single pull request. And so, we run 60,000 unit tests in like 5 minutes. And that's reasonable. And they aren't failing because they're small. Right. And if they do, it's probably my change. Right. And so we have
very relevant.
That's right. And so we want, the testing needs to have a really low signal to noise ratio. If I see something red, it's got to actually be.
You don't want to ignore it. And you don't want the right reflex to be to ignore it too.
That's right.
Like when you get into those brittle tests, where it's like, don't worry, those will get fixed later. Like the test is broken, not the code.
That's right.
As soon as you get that mindset, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. So these long running big end-to-end tests, we eliminated a whole ton of those in favor of this and also in favor of testing in production.
Right.
So when I think about our portfolio of 60,000 unit tests and 60 of these other tests now, it's enormously different.
Hugely different.
Yeah.
How do you test for state problems? Like memory leaks and things like that may only crop up after the thing's been running for a few weeks or that kind of thing. I talked to Brian Harry about this. This typical bug that we would not find with testing, even with real live testers, was, somebody goes through a process and then let's say it's 15 steps and they back up to step 7 and continue on from there. And then everything's kind of screwed up at that point because they didn't follow. So you almost have to have ESP in terms of what you think your users are going to do and how stupid they're going to be.
Or you can just do some exposure control and have your users use it.
So the first people who find that problem work for the company.
Yeah, that's right. And also a rich set of telemetry.
Right.
So you can tell what people are doing. And you get, the logs and the errors and stuff like that.
But it means the people who are testing it first need to be real users, not people who are just exercising the software for the academic sake of it or whatever.
That's right. I mean, we do have some of that, some of that testing, but I do think when you run a cloud service and we have the luxury of controlling exposure and saying, okay, it's just me. It's just my feature team. Now it's just, okay, now it's like all of my MVPs, and then, okay, now it's like early adopters beyond that. And
No, it seems very feasible, very reasonable, actually. Laura, give us one moment here to pay the bills.
Hey, Rockheads, this is Carl. Have you tried JetBrains Rider? It's a new cross-platform .NET IDE that's light yet powerful and comes from the makers of ReSharper, IntelliJ, IDEA, and WebStorm. You can write .NET code on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Rider has you covered. Rider helps you develop ASP.NET, .NET Core, .NET Framework, Xamarin, and Unity applications. Most languages used in .NET development are supported, from C#, VB.NET, F#, and XAML to ASP.NET Razor syntax, JavaScript, TypeScript, and all that other front-end stuff. It comes with navigation, thousands of code inspections, refactorings, unit testing, debugging, rich coding assistance, and more advanced IDE features powered by proven technology from ReSharper and WebStorm. Download Rider now and take it for a 30-day trial at rider.dotnetrocks.com. That's rider.dotnetrocks.com.
And we're back at Connect talking to Lori Lamkin about implementing DevOps inside of Microsoft, which is pretty darn cool. And, we've dug a lot into the restructuring of the team, the shift to the integration of QA and dev together. But you also talked about changing the schedule, sort of changing the heartbeat. What does that look like?
Well, it's interesting because we started with a 2-year product release cycle, hopefully.
Right.
And
it's a long time.
It is. It seems crazy now, even to think back on that. How did people ever find that acceptable? And I don't think they did, because I remember we would ship a beta a year and a half into it, and I'd get some feedback, and I'd be like, "Oh, we're busy. We'll get it in the next release."
Right, and that's 2 years.
2 years later,
now.
yeah.
Right.
Oh no, that's not very customer focused.
No.
So we felt impelled to do this, and so what we did is we decided on 3-week sprints, and we just said, "Okay, we're going to have a whole bunch of them." But we'd never done it before. And so we said, maybe we'll insert a little stabilization period just for safety's sake,
Yeah.
And so everybody was supposed to be done every sprint. That means write your tests and, fix the bugs and all that kind of stuff. And some teams did exactly that. And some teams were like, I got the stabilization period. It'll be fine. I want more features to go to customers. So I'm going to cram a bunch of features in, just like I used to in the 2-year product cycle.
Right.
And I'll fix them in stabilization. Well, what we ended up having to do was the teams that were in a good state had to load balance and help out the teams that weren't.
That were overloading.
Which was,
Yeah.
just think about that for a second. Like that was like a mob riot on, like that's so wrong. Like I did a good job and I'm getting punished.
You're getting punished for that.
And those guys didn't do what they were supposed to. So in that, we learned very quickly that what we needed to do was eliminate the stabilization period.
It is necessary.
And it is not changing the schedule if we don't eliminate that. And it was scary. It was like jumping over a cliff because we were afraid.
So this really is deployed to production.
It really was, and then if teams accumulated a bunch of bugs or debt or whatever and chose to work that way, they'd have to spend several sprints burning that down before they were ready to deploy.
Sure.
And so they were self-incented to mix the bug fixing and quality work with the development work, because nobody wants to, spend months just fixing bugs.
No, but plus if you're at every 3 weeks, you take smaller bites, and many features take longer than that. So you're deploying this switched off feature for a long time. So you're integrate, arguably the hardest part of coding, the integration piece, that's routine. That happens every 3 weeks, no matter what.
That's right.
What visible or not.
That's right.
Turning something on is a different story entirely. I have a strong background in the IT and performance side of things. And, we liked feature flags because we would put it into a silent mode to watch the load that a new feature exerted. Because people were asking us, well, how much more gear do we need back when there wasn't cloud?
Yep.
And so being actually able to benchmark a feature and say, okay, well, we now see the real world overhead of this, so we can provision so that when you turn that new feature onto the public, it doesn't tip the place over.
That's right.
Although these days, cloud makes that a heck of a lot easier than it used to be.
Cloud makes it easier, but the same analogy can be used for performance testing. Right. You want to make sure your customers have a good experience, and you spend a lot of time simulating that, but, actually going and putting that into production, you get the real thing.
Yeah, you actually figure it out.
Right.
I got to think when you walk in the door of the operations guys and say, hey, we're going to be testing these features in production.
Just a sheer panic.
They blow gaskets. Right? I saw what you did to the QA guys. What are you going to do to me?
We don't tell them to do that. We don't tell them what we're doing.
No,
they don't know.
We just do it.
No, and I think our operations team, as a part of our discipline evolution, we moved them to be from a separate organization into our engineering organization.
So same floor kind of thing?
Same floor, same engineering manager. So my peers are engineering managers.
Right.
One of them has a small operations team. And over time, as our development team has grown, we have kept the operations team small. So that reflects a shifting of duties from operations into development, so that development creates the deployment scripts and they actually deploy their features. And so the operations team becomes leaner and meaner and focused more on kind of monitoring and that, making sure we know what's going on in production. But again, the development team is cleaning up the alerts.
Sure. The single best thing I ever did for an operations team was put a dev in the firefighting group.
Yeah.
Because that dev came out every time with, we don't have enough instrumentation.
Yeah.
We need to be able to see more.
That's right.
We need to do test transactions. I want a dashboard. I want to be able to hit a button. It runs an end to end, gives me a green or a red.
That's right.
Like those kinds of things that I don't know that the operations folks even knew to ask for.
And if they did, they'd ignore them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just human nature. That's your problem. But when it becomes my problem too, because I'm getting called in the middle of the night, I become, okay. Well, and also when you run a cloud service, you can't really just attach a debugger into production, right?
Profiler's not allowed.
Yeah, right. So we learned really quickly that the first thing we needed to do was collect as much data as we could.
Right.
And that was a painful thing itself, because then we had so much data, we didn't know what to do with it.
You invariably get buried.
You can't get through it.
Yeah.
And we found that forming our KPIs and understanding those, designing what we wanted to measure that was actually just as hard as designing a feature.
Sure.
Because we said, hey,
in some ways you can make a feature that people like that nobody asked for.
Yeah.
But your metrics of performance, you actually have to figure out what customers really care about. You almost can't get away from it.
That's right. And, I often tell the story of when we started, one of the first metrics we wanted was, is the service healthy?
Right.
And then we had this whole, what does that mean conversation? And so we started with, pinging the service. And then that's, like, what? And then that was quick-lived. And then it became command health, which seemed like a great thing. But then what we found is that when the Windows team came on board with their 10,000 people in their account, the little 5-person account might be having a bad day.
Yeah.
But we're seeing what all comes out in the wash, because they have 10,000 people and 5 is just a blip.
The river is an average of 5 feet deep.
That's right. So we had to normalize the metric, and so the metrics evolved, and still do, for us to really understand, are we measuring the right thing to say every customer is having a great experience on our service?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is now?
It must be that happy time again.
Yeah, it's time to introduce a new concept called slow DevOps.
Oh.
Yeah. Because, not every app needs to get to market right away. We don't sprint, we mosey. We don't have action items, we have suggestions to start fixing to do some coding. We don't have telemetry, we have, hey, Vern, can you see if Jed's asleep again? Slow DevOps.
Slow DevOps.
It's actually time to give away a DevExpress D-Experience subscription to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. Become a UI superhero with DevExpress UI controls and libraries, and deliver elegant .NET solutions that address customer needs today, and leverage your existing knowledge to build next-generation touch-enabled solutions for tomorrow. Whether it's an Office-inspired application or a data-centric analytics dashboard, DevExpress Universal ships with everything you'll need to build your best, without limits or compromise. And check out their DevExtreme React Grid, built from the ground up to fully support all the cool features that come with React, like the virtual DOM and state controllers like Redux. It supports master detail, sorting, grouping, paging, and editing, and you can check it out right now on GitHub. But learn more and download your free 30-day trial of DevExpress Universal at devexpress.com/superhero.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner, Richard, is Sven Klassen.
Richard Sven.
Yeah.
Golf clap for you, sir.
Yeah, Sven, you just won the D-Experience subscription just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you don't know what that is, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world. And every show, we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December, we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But you got to sign up to win. And we also like to ask our guest, Lori, if you had $5,000 to spend on technology today, what would you buy?
Wow.
Didn't see that one coming.
No, I really didn't see that coming.
Twin boys, I can think of a certain amount of chaos you could require. If I was buying for you, it might involve some drums or fireworks. Mom, can I have a flamethrower? If I promise not to use it in the house?
Yeah, they're into all the video games,
Of
right?
course, I'm
yeah.
sure.
I mean, they got the boys hooked on video games. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
VR headsets for the boys.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
What about a great big box of illicit fireworks?
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
And those with the fireworks, you can blow the whole house up with that. And you don't really need that many fireworks to blow up a house. You just go straight to that hot water tank. Couple of alterations there, you fire that thing right out of the house. Now, I don't know why I know this. This is not a good thing. I once was a boy.
I have one brother, and he's about a year and a half older than me, and we used to take delight in torturing our mother when we were young, just because, she was the disciplinarian in the house. And so...
that sounds familiar.
You relate to this?
Fireworks were involved.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say. Sorry,
Just
Mom.
saying. Oh, yeah. She calls downstairs after the big bang.
What's going on?
You okay down there? I'm fine. Don't come down here. Has anyone seen my eyebrows? Actually, I'd let off a blast so big and I'd blow my eyebrows, most of the front of my hair off. And I was stunned enough that I just went upstairs. I didn't know. What was that? Nothing. Have you seen your face? I go in the bathroom like, okay, something.
You're like, boom.
Yeah. I learned from a professional sometime later that experienced pyrotechnicians jump away when they drop things. Inexperienced look where it went. And that's a mistake. You shouldn't do that.
Hey, where'd it go? I'm sorry, we've completely derailed
totally
this
derailed.
conversation.
No, I just, clearly I'm never meeting your boys.
You're making me appreciate my boys very much.
I haven't done any structural damage to the building yet,
Not
huh?
yet. I'm feeling... Didn't know
Definitely.
to feel like I was lucky for that. But
Yeah.
Behave, boys. Treat your mom well.
There you go.
Yeah.
We got to dive back into this because I think it's very interesting to me, this sort of evolution. I don't think we're done with the operations side because, again, it's about the instrumentation. I got to think that was sort of the next step of, do you know when folks are down, when they're unhappy before they call?
That's right.
Yeah.
That is our goal. Like, we don't want customers to have the experience. We want to know it before it happens. And we don't want them to have to then tell us. One of the things that we do is when we have incidents in production, we look at how long did it take us to detect it,
Right.
and whether or not we detected it from our automated system or whether it was
Actually a
an
PSS
inspired
call.
one. Yeah, exactly. So those are some key metrics we watch. We look at trend lines. We hold that monthly service review and go through that. And Brian, my boss, he's the VP. He goes through that with a fine tooth comb, and it really instills a culture of, life side is the most important thing.
Right.
Having the customer, who cares what you're working on now if it's not the customer's experience now?
Since all developers own their features that are in the field, that's their priority.
That is their priority, and it means sometimes things are unpredictable.
Sure.
Where you thought you were going to get something done that day or that sprint that didn't get done, but it's the right trade-off. All hands should be on deck.
There's a management element to DevOps that I've certainly dealt with organizations where the staff are so afraid to fail. That the consequences of failure are high. And then often, we end up tracing this back to a VP, often with technical chops, who had bad experiences. And it's like everything, never ever be down, never have a failure to the point where it's old scars.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you ever ran into this particular issue or just giving people the confidence that they can experiment, that a successful sprint was fixing things that affected stuff in production, not just shipping features.
Right.
That's right. That is a really hard message to get across to the team. And there's a bunch of ways that we do that. There are ways that we say, we share the metrics and we share how things have improved or how things are going in the right direction. Or we ask for sprint mail to say what are the improvements people are making and what the customer impact of those improvements are that include things like, I'm tweaking the performance of this and I'm making it better. That's awesome.
No.
So we try to celebrate those things and maybe turn up the volume a little higher on that because it
doing
is
the right thing for the customer versus pushing out the new feature.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That's really interesting to me. And I think it's a challenge to do that too. Because on one hand, you could also look at it as I did not anticipate that I would need to spend time on this. So why did I do it in the first place?
Yeah.
And in some respects, it's like when I was doing performance tuning as a contractor and being brought in, like, hey, congratulations, you have a good problem. If nobody was using your app, it would work great.
Yeah.
But now, you built this feature 6 months ago, and it's gotten more and more and more popular, more people talking about it, and now it's a problem because it's successful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another kind of different culture for having a live site is you just can't prevent everything from ever happening.
Sure.
As much as we'd like to, and humans don't want to fail, but it's like things are going to happen. And what you end up doing is saying the best thing is to figure out how quickly we can react.
Right.
How can we find it before customer experiences and how quickly can we turn around and react becomes way more important than prevention of it never happening.
Sure.
Isn't that important in life anyway?
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, when bad things happen to you, I mean,
It's only 10% what happens to you, 90% what you do about it.
What are you going to do about it? That's the next question.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the one you celebrate the most, is we found a problem in production and fixed it before the customer ever saw it.
That's right. That's
There's
a
huge win.
Huge win.
That's really interesting.
And I think, when we do have issues, we do share stories of customers that are unhappy, and stability is a feature, and here's customer and here's their experience. And we beat ourselves up about it, so that it keeps that very fresh.
And I feel like we've mostly talked about VSTS here. And that's a SaaS product. So, you have that people are using in real time, live, all the time, round the clock. When it comes to something like a Shrimp Crack app, I mean, can you get to that same sort of feel?
I think it's really different. The thing is we ship TFS also, and that is part of the same code base. I mean, it's the same code base on-prem and in the cloud. And so our strategy is to get it right in the cloud and be more aggressive in the cloud. And then we have to do all the different configuration testing and all the customizations that customers can do with their environments, and then get that all right. And then we can ship it on-prem. So
then you have to convince them to actually install it.
Then they have to upgrade, and and we've got to keep begging them to upgrade because they're missing out.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's why there's this delay between what we ship in the cloud and what we ship on-prem is because we are doing a little bit of that testing in production in the cloud. And we're also, there's this additional prevention. It's expensive to react to an on-prem failure. I have to submit a bug fix that you have to
get that product into shape to run on everybody else's hardware and everybody else's configuration.
Right.
And you run essentially one version of VSTS. It's on your gear.
That's right. It's all under our control.
Right.
And we can add more machines to it if we need to. And it's like
you can have TFS down because DNS is down.
That's right.
Right? Like it's not even the app. It's not your software. The customer's got a problem and it's a different problem.
That's right.
And if it happened to be right after they updated TFS.
Then I think it's us.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a bug that got through so many sentries and firewalls and tests and all this stuff, and you come stand around and you look at it, you're like, now how the heck did we miss that?
Yeah, that's happened a lot. In fact, we've had maybe an update and said, oh, we have to re-release the update in the on-prem product. And it's like, how did we not get that? You know, and we like to beat ourselves up about it. And we like to just go, what did we do? And how could we prevent that? Yeah. We take that same thing when we have issues on the service as well. It's just feels a lot less painful because you can fix it so much faster.
It can be minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
To get it dealt with.
Yeah,
Where
that's right.
Just getting through the process of making a version that other people can download.
That's right.
I mean, I've worked, not that I've done work on Microsoft products, but I know people who have. It's like, you understand, I have this fix done now, but there are miles to go before it's a downloadable, cumulative update.
That's right. And then it's there, but people haven't installed it. You got to talk people into doing that.
I just realized we have a broken process when it comes to podcasts and how we release them. And that is that there isn't, I don't think, a way. Let me describe the problem. It's exactly what I was talking about. We have a show that we edit and, the QA people listen to it and, the editor listens twice and then it gets shipped out and then, somebody swears or, there's a big gap in a space or something that we missed and somebody tweets it and say, hey, this is really strange. What are you guys dropped into some sort of meta conversation here. How did that happen? So we redo it. And then we republish it. But that just means anybody who hasn't already downloaded it gets the new version.
Right.
There isn't a mechanism in the podcast aggregators that says, oh, that's a different version. I'm going to re-download that.
Yeah.
Some of them are smart enough to do that, but not everybody. No. So essentially, hits the RSS feed, 40, 50,000, 60,000, whatever people download it all at the same time. And now they've got that. Yeah.
You need like package management for
well,
podcasts.
it's just a simple query of an RSS feed to see, let's see, maybe the date changed or maybe the bytes changed or the size or whatever.
Yeah.
Download it again.
We just had a scenario this year. We published the wrong show.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we pulled it and replaced it with the right show, but so many people had downloaded the wrong show already.
Yeah.
And then the wrong show became the right show a couple of weeks later. And people were like, didn't we already hear
Didn't we
this
just
show?
hear this? Oh, no. I know. So
It's a good problem to have. People are listening.
Yes. For better or worse, right? It's just like, when people are complaining, it's because they're using your product.
That's
but it's
right.
almost analogous to the people you wish would just upgrade. And because you're leaving it on them to figure out that they need to upgrade. Whereas, everything that's just deployed online is just, you hit refresh and it's there.
Yeah. Well, and I remember the reason those shows got shuffled is we were trying to time something for someone to, and then it just impacted everything. It's like, and you beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
Like
That's right. It's just human nature.
But in this case, the process needs to change. Like the protocol, something that's obviously admittedly beyond our control has to change, but that's what it is.
Better mechanism. Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting process. Making podcasts more software as a service, I think might be.
Well, that's right. That's what I was saying, package management. You get a feed and here's the feed. I subscribe to it and the feed's always up to date. And when I go to listen to it, it goes and checks and says, do I have the latest?
So how much does your team talk to other teams or work with other teams in the DevOps workflows to just sort of propagate that around the organization?
I think we are the first party engineering system for the company.
Right.
And with that comes a lot of not just dumping a bunch of tools on people, but going and saying, you have to change how you work.
Yeah.
And that means these things, that means let's start with your schedule and let's start with your VPs not freaking out and needing to plan a whole year 3 up front. It's hard because I can't go and tell executive vice presidents across Microsoft how to run their business.
Well, you can try.
I probably wouldn't have this job for long. But there's a way, and also people don't really want to hear so much that, that team's really good. Like they kind of more. Sure. So we've taken an approach, which we've also published out on visualstudio.com, which is here's what we did and here's what we learned, which is also the mistakes that we made.
That's what learnings look like.
And people will listen to that and not feel like, they know everything, and I don't want to feel bad about myself or, I can't believe it. Right.
Yeah. These are not small changes you've described, Lauren.
Yes.
You've walked through real team changes and real, people deciding to do careers differently afterwards.
Yep.
Like,
that's right.
It's not a little thing.
That's right.
Don't come in casually. And
that's
I think
right.
It's got to be a lot of empathy for the stress that it puts on folks to take something they've done for many years and said, well, we're going to try this different way.
And I think the best advice I can give is to just do it incrementally. There's a few things like the scheduler, like the accountability that really is hard to do piecemeal.
Yeah.
But all of these practices, like we were talking earlier, it's like, it's everything. DevOps is everything a developer needs to do from idea to production and back. It's overwhelming to change all of it. So it's like, just pick the point where it's most painful for you, get that right, and then take the next chunk. We didn't start out with all that telemetry I was talking about, but it became quickly the biggest problem that we had was let's make sure our service is up.
Getting to the place where you can notify a developer that their feature is causing problems in production.
That's right.
Represents a lot of pieces.
That's right.
Hey, Vern.
That's right.
You awake?
Yeah. And now, because we started with TFS, that source base, and then made it into VSTS, now we're sitting here trying to break it apart into microservices. So you could say, we do all these DevOps practices and, we probably have 40 microservices now, but we still have a large monolith that we're still trying to break pieces off. It's a journey. It takes, you can't just go, it's continual improvement and continual investment in how your teams work.
Will there be a point where there's no monolith left? It's an interesting question. Like at one point you look at the last remaining monolith and go, actually, it's just a service.
It's fine.
It's just a service. It's as small as that needs to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're pretty practical about that. Because doing those sorts of investments are great for the health of the code base, but you have to balance that with the new functionality you give customers. It's a trade-off. There's it's not unlimited. You have to keep making customer value while you're investing in these other things.
And certainly staying on trend with what modern developers need from
That's
the tools too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of players in this space. They're all moving. So,
That's right.
You're looking at a lot of different pieces at once.
That's right. It's exciting though. There's a lot of innovation and people trying things out and sharing and learning. And then, I keep asking, okay, how can we get tools to help with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Donovan Brown on a video. I think it was one of the DevInt videos. And we talked about the right time to throw a party for your team.
Oh, that sucks now.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we used to have that 2-year. It was a big milestone, big party.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe have a day or two off. Like we were exhausted running up to that. And now it's like, they say sprints for a reason.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sprinting all the time. I'm exhausted.
Y'all just got to simmer down now.
a little slow DevOps and you'll feel better. I do like the idea that everybody celebrates together. That the metric has got to be something in the customer satisfaction realm.
Yeah.
Where you know that it's the code that was written and tested and put in the field and instrumented and shown to be valuable.
Yeah.
And evolved and, represents a new level of success. That it's customer metrics that are the point where you can go, we all need to go have a beer and congratulate each other.
That's right. When we have a certain number of engaged users and we hit milestones there, those are points where we celebrate. And also events like this.
Sure.
We're here at Connect. It's like, wow, we just unveiled a bunch of customer value here.
Right.
And this is exciting. And so let's take a little downtime.
And you're getting great feedback too while you're here.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, from your customers.
I know.
But I get the sense that you've had a bunch of features built for a while now that have been feature flagged off waiting for an event.
Well, that would be nice if it always worked that way. In the idea, so I'd say of what you saw here, half of them were like that.
Right. And some of them we're not quite ready to flip that one on just
the
yet.
Azure DevOps project that Donovan demoed in Scott Guthrie's keynote was definitely coming in real hot. We were like,
remember the old PDCs, like 2008,
Oh, yeah,
things
that's
like
right.
that,
Yeah.
where there was a period where it's like, if you didn't make that deadline, there's not another PDC for a year.
Yeah.
And so you could really lose your mind trying to deliver to these big event milestones.
That's
So
right.
You're always putting new features out so that you almost can roll up a bundle of them and say, here, let's talk about these for this event. So
That's right.
There's always a story to tell.
Yeah, and we feel comfortable talking about things that are on the near-term horizon that are going to deploy in 3 weeks or 6 weeks.
Because they've actually been worked on for quite a while.
Yeah, we can demo them, and they might not be, it's not ideal. We want it all to be available, but if it's not, we can still talk about them as long as it's, because it's not 6 months away.
So what's interesting is you can zoom out and you can see these milestones that are culminations of rolls of features, as Richard said, and have a party. But it's just so anticlimactic because what's the thing that just, okay, yeah, we're at that milestone yet. It's like one test. It's like, one deployment. It's like, okay, I guess we can have a party now.
Yeah.
It's not like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It is less dramatic.
It is less dramatic.
Yeah, which maybe is probably actually a good thing.
One of the challenges in my job is I want to instill energy in the team and make them proud and feel good. And that comes naturally when you do a big release.
Yeah, the big bang.
Yeah.
And it can feel forced if it's not, like you don't want to be, not authentic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think
So,
it's an interesting balancing act there.
Yeah.
To just humans do thrive on a certain amount of drama.
Yes, they do.
Not too much.
Yes.
You can't be in the crashing surf every day.
That's right.
I guess what you could do is to do it the opposite way. You schedule a party every quarter, right? And whatever is done at that quarter, that's your milestone.
I think you guys are a little over-focused on the parties. I'm getting a feeling here.
Only if there's fireworks.
It's really important to you guys.
Well, we do have a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, what's next for you?
We just finished our planning period, and we're focused on a bunch of really exciting scenarios for build around how to make social coding and sharing across organizations and the reuse of open source. And so we've got a whole bunch of new things coming out there and giving people analytics into their own DevOps processes and how to, delve into that. So I'm excited to kind of get back and see how those things are shaping up, make sure we have some great designs, start iterating with some early customers on it.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving recipe?
Oh, okay. Well, I love the cornbread stuffing, with, kind of traditional walnuts, apples, celery, onions, sage.
Nice.
Yeah. That
Sausage?
Sort of thing. No sausage.
No sausage?
I haven't done the sausage. It's hard So I'm a cook, love
Are
cooking,
you? Great.
and I love to experiment with all these different stuffings, but you can't do that for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's
too
the wrong
important.
time. Wrong time.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
too
not.
important.
Use the cooking method you trust.
Yeah.
Use it for the recipes you trust.
Well, and you disappoint people. They're like, I love
Right.
Yeah, you can experiment on turkey at Easter.
Yeah,
I love
yeah, exactly.
stuffing. What is this?
Exactly. Too much at stake.
All right. Well, thanks, Lori. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got a transmitter banned by the FCC.